Chosen one, why are you still alive when others who seemed stronger didn't make it? Why did you survive that betrayal that should have destroyed you, while others crumbled from far less? Why do you wake up every morning carrying a weight in your chest that you can't name? A restlessness that whispers you're meant for something more. If this message found you, it is not random. God Himself let this find your screen because you, yes, you, passed the final test. And that's why the 24th of August cannot be treated like any other day. Listen to me carefully, chosen one. For months, maybe years, you've been walking through fires that would have consumed ordinary souls. You've endured betrayals from people you trusted most. You've weathered financial storms that should have broken you. You've felt the crushing weight of loneliness, even in crowded rooms. But here's what the enemy doesn't want you to know. Every single trial was a test. Every heartbreak, every closed door, every night you cried yourself to sleep, wondering if God had forgotten your name. It was all preparation for the 24th of August. Something is shifting in the spiritual realm. The very air around your life is changing. And if you've been feeling restless lately, if you've been having dreams that feel too real to ignore, if you've noticed people acting strangely around you, that's because heaven is positioning you for what's coming. Before we go deeper, I want to pause and thank every single one of you who has supported this message through Super Thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your support, your time, your attention, it all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and plant that seed of faith. But here's the shocking truth that will change everything you thought you knew about your struggles. You weren't being punished, you were being prepared. In the next few minutes, I'll tell you what the 24th of August really means for your destiny. But first, you need to understand why God tested you at all. Because what's about to be revealed on that day will separate the chosen from the comfortable, the awakened from the asleep, the ready from the reluctant. If you feel this message burning inside you right now, if your spirit is stirring as these words hit your ears, type 777 the comments. That number carries divine frequency, and it will help this message reach others who need to hear it. Share this with one friend, because they may not even realize they are chosen too. The countdown has already begun. The 24th of August is coming whether you're ready or not. The question is, will you recognize it when it arrives? How many nights have you laid in that same bed, staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m., wondering why your children stopped calling? How many times have you sat at your kitchen table, surrounded by bills you couldn't pay, whispering prayers that felt like they bounced off empty air? How many mornings have you woken up in a house that once echoed with laughter, now silent as a tomb, and asked yourself if anyone would even notice if you were gone? Dear chosen one, I know you're sitting there right now feeling the weight of these words in your chest, because for 70, 80, maybe 90 years, you've carried burdens that would have crushed weaker souls. You've survived betrayals from people you poured your life into. You've buried dreams alongside the people you loved most. You've watched your body betray you, your mind forget things you swore you'd never lose, and your bank account shrink while the world around you got more expensive. But tonight, I need you to understand something that will shatter every lie you've believed about your suffering. Those sleepless nights when grief sat on your chest like a stone, that wasn't abandonment, that was preparation. Those moments when your own family turned their backs on you, when friends you'd known for decades suddenly became strangers. That wasn't rejection, that was selection. Every single tear you've cried in secret, every prayer you've whispered in desperation, every time you felt like giving up but somehow found the strength to take one more breath, that was God building something inside you that this world has never seen. You see, the Almighty doesn't waste pain on people. He doesn't trust with power. He doesn't allow suffering in the lives of those He plans to discard. Romans 8:28 promises us that all things work together for good, to them that love God, To them who are the called according to his purpose, all things, not just the pleasant ones, not just the easy ones, every single heartbreak, every financial crisis, every health scare, every moment you felt forgotten by the world. Think about Job for a moment. This man lost everything in a single day: his children, his wealth, his health, even his wife's support. But God allowed it because he knew Job carried something precious that needed to be proven, not to God, who already knew Job's heart, but to Job himself. And when the testing was over, Job didn't just get back what he'd lost. He received double. Double the herds, double the wealth, double the blessings, because the testing revealed that he could be trusted with more than he'd ever imagined. You think your trials were random? You think your pain was pointless? Let me tell you what really happened to you all these years. Every time someone you trusted broke your heart, God was teaching you discernment. Every financial struggle that brought you to your knees was showing you that your security doesn't come from your bank account. It comes from your relationship with the provider. Every health battle that left you weak and afraid was proving to you that his strength is made perfect in your weakness. Every lonely night when the phone didn't ring and the house felt empty was drawing you closer to the one who never leaves nor forsakes. You weren't being punished, beloved. You were being prepared for the 24th of August. But here's what breaks my heart. So many of you have been carrying shame about your struggles. You've looked at other families and wondered why they seemed blessed while you seemed cursed. You've questioned your faith, wondering if you did something wrong, if God was angry with you, if your prayers weren't good enough or your faith wasn't strong enough. Stop right there. Let me tell you something that will change how you see every trial you've endured. The enemy attacks what he fears. He doesn't waste time destroying ordinary lives. He reserves his most vicious assaults for those who carry the greatest threat to his kingdom. Every betrayal you survived, every storm you weathered, every mountain you climbed when others said it was impossible, was proof that you carry something he desperately wanted to kill before it could fully awaken. But you're still here. After everything hell threw at you, you're still breathing. You're still believing. You're still hoping when hope should have died years ago. That's not human strength, dear one. That's divine DNA flowing through your veins. David understood this when he wrote in Psalm 23, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me." He didn't say if he walked through the valley. He said, though, he knew the valley was part of the journey. But he also knew he wasn't walking alone. Every valley you've walked through, every shadow of death you've faced, every moment when fear tried to consume you but somehow you kept moving forward, God was right there beside you. Not watching from a distance, not taking notes for later, but walking step by step through the fire with you. Those were not punishments. Those were divine rehearsals. Every wound was a classroom. Every betrayal was an exam. Every sleepless night was a graduation ceremony you didn't even know you were attending. And you, precious chosen one, you passed every single test. The loneliness taught you to find your strength in solitude with God. The financial struggles taught you that your worth isn't measured by your wallet. The health battles taught you that your body may be temporary, but your spirit is eternal. The family conflicts taught you that your true family is found in those who share your faith. Not just your bloodline. You passed the test of endurance when others quit. You passed the test of faith when circumstances screamed there was no God. You passed the test of forgiveness when you had every right to be bitter. You passed the test of hope when everything around you whispered despair. And now, as the 24th of August approaches, heaven is preparing to show you why every single trial was worth it, why every tear had purpose, why every prayer was heard, why every step through the darkness was leading you to this moment of divine revelation. If you've ever felt like life's trials were stacked unfairly against you, comment "I passed" below, because you need to declare it. You need to speak it into existence. You need to let heaven and earth know that you recognize what just happened to you all these years. You weren't just surviving random hardships. You were graduating from God's university of preparation. And your diploma is about to be delivered on the 24th of August in ways that will leave you speechless. But the question that will determine everything that happens next is this. Now that you know you passed the tests, are you ready to receive what you've been tested for? You thought the test would come from strangers, didn't you? You thought God would send some dramatic trial, some obvious challenge that you could see coming from a mile away. But that's not how heaven operates, chosen one. The final test never comes from the outside. It comes from the inside of your own home. Your children, your spouse, your best friend. The ones who knew where you bled were allowed by heaven to press those wounds one last time. Think about it. Who else knows exactly what to say to trigger that old anger? Who else remembers the exact words that cut deepest? Who else can push your buttons with surgical precision? They didn't do it because they're evil. They did it because God allowed it, because the final test had to come from those who could reach your heart. Remember Job? The devil didn't attack him through strangers. He used Job's own wife, the woman who shared his bed, who knew his fears, who watched him worship every morning. And what did she say in his darkest hour? Curse God and die. Job 2-9. The test came through the voice he trusted most. You've lived through your own Job season, haven't you? When everything that could go wrong did go wrong. When the people you loved most questioned your faith. When your own family looked at your struggles and whispered, maybe God really has forgotten you. But here's what they didn't understand. Here's what you're only now beginning to see. It wasn't a hurricane outside your window. It was the storm inside your chest. And when you chose silence over pride, peace over battle, forgiveness over revenge, you disarmed the enemy. Every harsh word you didn't speak back. Every time you walked away instead of fighting. Every moment you chose love when they deserved anger. You were passing the test without even knowing you were taking it. The enemy was counting on you to react. He was banking on you to explode, to lash out, to prove that all those years of faith were just a facade. He wanted you to show your true colors when the pressure got too intense, but you didn't break. You bent like a tree in the wind, but your roots held firm. That's why you're here. You survived because you chose heaven's response instead of hell's reaction. That's how you passed. But let me ask you something that's going to shake you to your core. Why do you think it had to be so personal? Why couldn't God just test your patience with traffic jams or your faith with minor inconveniences? Because surface-level faith can handle surface-level problems. But the calling God has for you requires something deeper. It requires a faith that's been tested in the furnace of betrayal, a love that's been proven in the crucible of rejection, a peace that's been forged in the fire of family conflict. Jesus himself knew this truth. When the soldiers came to arrest him in the Garden of Gethsemane, who led them there? Judas, his own disciple, the one who had walked with him for 3 years, the one who had seen the miracles, heard the teachings, shared the meals. The betrayal came from within the inner circle. And how did Jesus respond? Friend, do what you came to do. Matthew 26-50. Even in betrayal, he chose love. Even in abandonment, he chose forgiveness. That's the DNA of the chosen ones. That's what God was testing in you. Your family didn't understand why you wouldn't fight back. Your friends couldn't comprehend why you stayed quiet when you had every right to defend yourself. They called it weakness. God called it maturity. They saw surrender. Heaven saw strength. But here's the part that will blow your mind. While you were choosing peace over pride, while you were swallowing your words instead of spitting them out like venom, something supernatural was happening. Every act of restraint was building spiritual authority. Every moment of silence was accumulating divine favor. Every choice to love instead of hate was depositing grace into your heavenly account. And now it's time for the withdrawal. You see, God doesn't waste anything. Not your pain, not your patience, not your persistent choice to trust Him when everything in you wanted to quit. He's been collecting every tear, recording every prayer, documenting every moment you chose His way over your way. 1 Peter 4:12-13 says, Beloved, do not be surprised at the fiery trial when it comes upon you to test you, as though something strange were happening to you. But rejoice insofar as you share Christ's sufferings, that you may also rejoice and be glad when his glory is revealed. When his glory is revealed. Not if. When. That's why the 24th of August matters. That's why this date has been circled in heaven's calendar with your name written beside it. Because the glory that was hidden during your test is about to be revealed through your testimony. You passed when others failed. You stood when others fell. You chose heaven's response when hell was screaming in your ear. And now, on the 24th of August, the appointed day, what happens next will separate the chosen from the distracted, the tested from the untested, the refined from the unrefined. But are you ready for what that revelation actually means? Are you prepared for what happens when someone who passed heaven's final test finally steps into their divine assignment? Beloved, let me tell you something that will shake you to your very core. The 24th of August is not just another date circled on your calendar. It is a divine appointment that has been written in the courts of heaven since before you took your first breath. On this day, the veil between heaven and earth will be thinner than you've ever known. Words will carry eternal weight. Choices will echo for years. Stay home, stay still, stay awake. Do you remember Job? When Satan came before God asking permission to test his servant, what did the Almighty say? Have you considered my servant Job? There is no one on earth like him. Job 1-8. God didn't protect Job from the test. He showcased him during it. And that's exactly what's happening to you right now. For 70, 80, maybe 90 years, you've been walking through trials that would have destroyed weaker souls. Every betrayal that should have broken you. Every financial collapse that should have buried you. Every diagnosis that should have defeated you. But you're still here. You're still standing. You're still believing. Why? Because God has been preparing you for the 24th of August. Here's what heaven sees that you don't. Your entire life has been a series of increasingly difficult tests, each one designed to build spiritual muscle you didn't know you needed. That depression in your 40s that felt like it would never end. That was endurance training. That divorce that left you questioning everything, that was faith strengthening. That season when your children turned their backs on you, that was preparation for walking alone with God. Every single trial was boot camp for this moment. But let me warn you about what's coming on the 24th of August. The test won't arrive through a stranger or an obvious crisis. It will come through the person you trust most. Your spouse of 50 years might say something that cuts deeper than a surgeon's blade. Your adult child might call with news that reopens a wound you thought had healed. A lifelong friend might reveal a truth that shatters everything you believed about them. Picture this. You're sitting in your favorite chair, the morning light streaming through those same windows you've looked through for decades. The phone rings. It's them, the one person who knows exactly which buttons to push, which scars to press, which fears to awaken. They speak words that feel like ice water in your veins. Your heart starts racing. Your mind immediately goes to that dark place where hurt lives. Every instinct screams at you to respond, to defend, to fight back with words sharp enough to cut bone. This is the moment. This is the test. Will you speak from your wound or from your wisdom? Because here's what the enemy doesn't want you to understand. He's been studying you for decades. He knows your triggers better than you do. He knows that criticism about your parenting still makes you bleed. He knows that being ignored makes you feel worthless. He knows that feeling forgotten is your deepest fear. But God knows something the enemy doesn't. God knows that at 75, at 85, at 95, you've finally learned the difference between reacting and responding. You've discovered that silence can be more powerful than 1,000 arguments. You've realized that protecting your peace is more important than proving your point. Proverbs 17:28 declares, "Even fools are thought wise if they keep silent, and discerning if they hold their tongues." But you're no fool, chosen one. You're a spiritual warrior who has learned that the greatest victories are won in the quiet moments when no one else is watching. That memory that tries to resurface on the 24th of August, the one you've spent years trying to forget. Don't push it away. Let it come, let it speak. But don't let it control your response. That old scar that threatens to reopen, acknowledge the pain, but don't live in it. That loved one whose words feel like poison in your ears, hear them, but don't absorb them. Here's the stunning truth that will revolutionize everything. If you respond with wisdom, with silence, with calm, heaven records it as victory. Every word you don't say becomes a prayer. Every reaction you resist becomes an offering. Every moment you choose peace over pride becomes a testimony that echoes through eternity. Your silence on that day will be louder than 10,000 shouts. Your restraint will be the trumpet that brings down your walls. Your refusal to be baited into old patterns will be the very thing that breaks generational curses and establishes generational blessings. But why the 24th of August? Why now? Because you're finally ready. At this stage of your life, you've buried enough dreams to know what really matters. You've lost enough people to understand that time is precious. You've walked through enough valleys to appreciate the mountaintops. You've made enough mistakes to recognize wisdom when it whispers. You're no longer fighting for approval, you're walking in authority. You're no longer seeking validation, you're standing in your calling. You're no longer chasing what was, you're embracing what is. Isaiah 43:19 promises, "See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it?" God is about to do something in your life that will leave your children and grandchildren speechless. But first, you must pass this final test. That is why you cannot miss the 24th of August. That is why you must stay home, stay still, stay awake. Because what happens on that day will determine whether you spend your remaining years as a victim of your circumstances or as a victor through Christ. Write today's date in the comments below, seal it. Say, "I will be ready on the 24th of August." Because what I'm about to reveal next will show you exactly what victory looks like when it finally arrives. Listen to me, dear one. Your life has been a furnace. Your tears were molten metal being heated to perfection. But the 24th of August is when the blacksmith lays down his hammer and reveals the weapon you've become. For 70, 80, maybe 90 years, you've wondered why your path was so much harder than everyone else's. Why did your husband walk out when the Johnsons down the street celebrated 50 years? Why did your children scatter to different states while your neighbor's family gathers every Sunday? Why did your business fail in 2008 while others thrived? Because you were being forged, not forgotten. Think about Joseph, 17 years old with dreams of greatness, thrown into a pit by his own brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused by Potiphar's wife, forgotten in prison for years, while the cupbearer he helped walked free. Every door slammed shut, every hope crushed. Joseph could have died bitter, believing God had abandoned him. But Genesis 41:14 tells us something profound. Then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him hastily out of the dungeon. Hastily. After 13 years of silence, God moved so fast that Joseph went from prisoner to prime minister in a single day. Why? Because the prison wasn't punishment, it was preparation. Every injustice was developing the character he'd need to save nations. You are Joseph in this generation. Your prison years are ending. Consider Daniel, thrown into a den of hungry lions because he refused to stop praying. Daniel 6:22 records his testimony. My God sent his angel and shut the lions' mouths. But here's what most people miss. Daniel didn't argue with King Darius. He didn't fight the decree. He didn't protest his innocence. His silence became his strength. His calm in crisis became his credentials. You've learned that same silence, haven't you? When the doctors delivered devastating news, when the bank foreclosed on your home, when friends turned their backs, you didn't scream. You didn't curse God. You endured with dignity that only comes from knowing someone bigger is writing your story. Look at David facing Goliath. 1 Samuel 17:45. I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts. A teenage shepherd boy with a slingshot against a 9-foot warrior in full armor. The odds were impossible. But David had spent years alone in fields, fighting lions and bears to protect his sheep. Those battles nobody saw prepared him for the battle everyone would remember. Your Goliath moment is coming. Every giant that mocked your dreams, every voice that said you were too old, too broken, too late, they're about to meet the weapon you've become in secret. But this isn't just biblical history. This is your American story too. Oprah Winfrey was born into poverty in rural Mississippi, sexually abused, told she was unfit for television, and fired from her first job. At 60, she built a media empire worth $2.8 billion. Her pain became her platform. Steve Jobs was rejected by his own company at 30, called a failure by the tech world. He returned at 42 to create the iPhone and transform how the world communicates. His exile became his education. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison, labeled a terrorist by governments worldwide. He emerged at 71 to become South Africa's president and a global symbol of reconciliation. His captivity became his credibility. Tyler Perry lived in his car, homeless and hungry, while everyone said his plays would never succeed. Today, at 54, he owns the largest film studio in America. His rejection became his resurrection. Do you see the pattern? The greater the calling, the greater the crushing. The more significant the assignment, the more severe the preparation. Your life has been a tapestry woven with golden threads of suffering. Every thread of pain, every strand of loss, every fiber of disappointment has been carefully placed by divine hands. The 24th of August is when you finally see the masterpiece. It was never about the pain you carried. It was about the person you became. That depression that nearly killed you in your 50s, it gave you compassion that can reach into someone's darkest hour and pull them back to life. That financial ruin that left you eating beans from a can, it taught you that your security doesn't come from your bank account, it comes from your relationship with the Almighty. That betrayal that shattered your trust, it developed discernment that can now spot deception from a mile away. You think you survived those trials by accident. You think you're still here by luck. No, beloved, you're still breathing because God has an assignment that requires exactly the wisdom you've gained, exactly the strength you've built, exactly the faith you've developed in the dark. Isaiah 54:17 declares, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper, not some weapons, not most weapons, no weapon. Every scheme designed to destroy you has failed, because failure is the only option when hell goes to war with heaven's agenda." The 24th of August is when heaven unveils you, not as a victim of circumstances, but as a victor over every force that tried to break you, not as someone who barely survived, but as someone who thrived in conditions that would have destroyed others. The furnace is cooling, the hammer has stopped striking, the weapon is complete. But what exactly will be unveiled on the 24th of August? What has God been preparing you for through all these years of fire? But here's where your story takes a turn that will leave you breathless, chosen one. What I'm about to reveal will shatter every lie you've believed about your remaining years on this earth. You've been told your best days are behind you, haven't you? Society whispers that at 65, 70, 80 years old, you should settle into the shadows. Accept less. Expect decline. Count down instead of up. But what if I told you that everything you've been told about aging is a deception straight from the enemy's playbook? Listen to what the Almighty declares in Psalm 92:14. They will still bear fruit in old age. They will stay fresh and green. Fresh and green, not withered, not forgotten, not finished. The God who created you doesn't operate on society's timeline. He operates on eternity's calendar. And according to heaven's schedule, your richest harvest is still ahead. Think about Moses for a moment. When did God call him to his greatest assignment? At 80 years old. While the world would have put him in a retirement home, heaven was handing him a nation to deliver. Abraham received his promise at 100. Sarah laughed at God's plan when she was 90, then birthed the impossible. These weren't accidents of Scripture, they were prophecies of your potential. After the 24th of August, something magnificent begins to unfold. The doors that have been sealed shut for decades will begin to creak open. Not because you're knocking harder, but because heaven itself is turning the handle. People who dismissed you, who counted you out, who made you feel invisible, they will return. But this time, they won't come with pity or obligation. They will come with respect, with recognition, with sudden awareness that something about you has shifted. You see, dear one, what happens on the 24th of August isn't just a test, it's a transformation. The moment you pass that final examination, your spiritual frequency changes. Your very presence begins to carry weight that others can feel but cannot explain. Conversations will seek you out. Opportunities will hunt you down like a bloodhound following a scent. Those blessings you thought you missed, the chances you believed had passed you by, they didn't disappear, they were waiting for this exact moment when your character matched your calling, when your wisdom caught up with your anointing, when your experience aligned with your assignment. Here's what breaks my heart about so many precious souls I meet. You've accepted crumbs when God prepared a feast. You've settled for survival when He designed you for abundance. You've believed the lie that your significance decreases with your age, when the truth is, your influence increases with your surrender. But the 24th of August changes the mathematics of your existence. No longer will you chase after what belongs to you, it will chase after you. No longer will you beg for recognition. Respect will flow toward you like water seeking its level. No longer will you wonder if your voice matters, people will lean in when you speak, because they sense authority that comes only from walking through fire and emerging as gold. And here's the mystery that will astound you. Your greatest ministry, your deepest impact, your most profound purpose, it's all waiting on the other side of this date. Not behind you in your youth, but ahead of you in your wisdom years. Because God saves the best wine for last, and you, chosen one, are His vintage reserve. The dreams you buried because someone told you it was too late, they're about to resurrect with power you never imagined. The calling you abandoned because the world said you were too old, it's about to manifest with clarity that will leave doubters speechless. The legacy you thought would never be, it's about to begin in ways that will echo through generations. Isaiah 46:4 carries a promise that will shake your very foundation. Even to your old age and grey hairs, I am He who will sustain you. I have made you, and I will carry you. I will sustain you, and I will rescue you. Do you hear that? Even to your old age, especially in your old age. This is when God shows His greatest strength through your surrendered weakness. After the 24th of August, the narrative changes. The conversation shifts. The atmosphere around your life transforms. What felt like an ending becomes a beginning. What looked like a sunset reveals itself as a sunrise. What seemed like retirement becomes recommissioning for the most important work of your lifetime. Your children will call more often, not out of duty, but out of hunger for the wisdom they suddenly recognize you carry. Your grandchildren will seek your counsel, not just your cookies. Your community will turn to you not as a relic of the past, but as a prophet of the future. This isn't fantasy, beloved. This is prophecy. This isn't wishful thinking. This is divine decree. Every tear you've cried in secret has watered the ground for this harvest. Every prayer you've whispered in the dark has built the altar for this breakthrough. Every test you've passed has earned you credentials for this commission. But here's the urgency that should grip your soul. The 24th of August is not just another day on your calendar, it's your divine appointment with destiny. And if you miss it, if you treat it as ordinary, if you let doubt convince you that this word isn't for you, you may spend the rest of your years wondering what could have been, instead of walking in what was meant to be. The choice is before you right now. Will you step into the greatest chapter of your story, Or will you remain trapped in the lie that your story is ending? Because I'm telling you with prophetic authority, this isn't the end of your story, it's the beginning of your crown. If you believe the 24th of August is your divine appointment, if you can feel destiny stirring in your bones, type I receive it in the comments right now. Share this word so another chosen one doesn't miss their day. Because what God is about to do through the generation that refuses to fade quietly will shake the very foundations of what this world believes about age, purpose, and divine timing. When the 24th of August passes, there will be a silence. Not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of completion. Like the hush after a storm, when the air smells of rain and the earth feels reborn. Have you ever felt that eerie peace, when you realize something invisible has shifted, and your soul whispers, "This is the turning point"? Dear chosen one, I need you to understand something profound about this silence. It's not the absence of noise, it's the presence of God settling into your circumstances like morning mist over still water. For 70, 80, maybe 90 years, you've been fighting battles that seemed endless. The sleepless nights wondering if your children would ever call. The mornings you woke up next to an empty pillow where your spouse once lay. The afternoons staring at bank statements that never seemed to stretch far enough. You thought those battles were punishment, but heaven whispers something different. Those battles were preparation. Listen to what the psalmist wrote in Psalm 46:10. Be still, and know that I am God. The Hebrew word for be still is rapha. It means to let go completely, to stop striving, to release your grip on what you thought you could control. For decades you've been holding on so tight your knuckles turned white. But the 24th of August changes everything. In this sacred silence, you'll finally hear what's been whispered over your life all along. Not the voices of doubt that told you it was too late, not the echoes of regret that haunted your 3 a.m. hours, but the voice of the Almighty saying, "Well done, faithful servant. You passed the test I knew you could pass." You see, every senior watching this knows the weight of accumulated sorrow. The friends who promised to stay in touch but didn't. The dreams that got buried under decades of responsibility. The moments you looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the person staring back. Society told you those were signs of failure, evidence that your best years were behind you. That was a lie. The truth is devastating in its beauty. Every tear you shed was watering ground for a harvest you couldn't see. Every night you stayed awake praying for wayward children was building spiritual authority. Every dollar you counted twice was teaching you the value of divine provision. Every moment you felt forgotten was God positioning you for a revelation so powerful it would make up for every year of waiting. In Ecclesiastes 3:1, Solomon wrote, "To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven. Your season of testing is ending. Your season of receiving is beginning." But here's what breaks my heart about so many seniors today. They're still living in yesterday's storm when God has already moved them into tomorrow's peace. You thought the battle was about your enemies, but heaven whispers the battle was about your becoming. Consider Job, who lost everything at age 70. His children, his wealth, his health, even his wife's support. For months he sat in ashes, scraping his sores with broken pottery, wondering why God had forgotten him. But Job 42:12 reveals the stunning truth. So the Lord blessed the latter end of Job more than his beginning, more than his beginning. At 70 years old, Job received double for his trouble. This is your Job moment, chosen one. The dust is settling after a battle you didn't even realize you were winning. But in this silence, something supernatural happens. The anxiety that gripped your chest for decades begins to loosen. The fear about tomorrow starts to fade. The regret about yesterday loses its power. Because in this divine quiet, you finally understand that every closed door was protecting you from what would have destroyed you. Every delayed answer was timing, aligning with heaven's perfect plan. Romans 8:28 becomes more than scripture. It becomes your lived experience. And we know that all things work together for good, to them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose. All things, not some things, not the easy things. All things. The loneliness you felt after your spouse passed, it taught you that God could fill spaces no human ever could. The financial struggles that kept you awake, they showed you that your security doesn't come from bank accounts, but from the one who owns every bank in America. The health scares that made you question everything, they revealed that your strength flows from an eternal source that never runs dry. In this silence after the 24th of August, you'll notice something remarkable. The phone calls you've been waiting for will come. The reconciliation you've been praying for will happen. The provision you've been seeking will arrive. Not because you finally did something right, but because heaven's timing finally aligned with your readiness to receive. Isaiah 40:31 promises something beautiful. But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary, and they shall walk and not faint. This isn't talking about young eagles, chosen one. This is talking about seasoned eagles who've learned that the strongest flight comes from catching the right wind at the right moment. Your wind has arrived. The silence after the 24th of August won't feel empty. It will feel full, full of possibility, full of peace, full of the presence of a God who never forgot your name, never lost track of your tears, never stopped working behind the scenes of your story. If you feel the storm has already passed in your life, comment "Peace is here." Declare it, because your declaration activates what your endurance has earned. But this peace comes with a responsibility. You can't waste it on worry. You can't squander it on old patterns. You can't let fear steal what faith has finally delivered. Dear chosen one, let me tell you something that will shatter every lie you've believed about your life. For decades you've been told you're ordinary. You've been convinced you're forgotten. You've been made to feel invisible in a world that celebrates the loud, the flashy, the young. But what if I told you that your invisibility was intentional? What if your silence was strategic? What if every moment you felt buried alive was actually God planting you deeper into purpose? You've been hidden like a seed underground, buried, forgotten, dismissed. But the burial was not the end, it was the planting. And the 24th of August was the rain. Listen to me carefully. In John 12:24, Jesus declared, "Unless a grain of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains only a single seed. But if it dies, it produces many seeds." You thought you were dying. You thought those years of struggle, those seasons of silence, those moments when you felt completely forgotten by God and man, you thought that was your ending. You were wrong. That was your beginning. Every senior saint watching this right now knows exactly what I'm talking about. You remember the nights you cried yourself to sleep, wondering if your children would ever call. You remember the doctor's visits that left you questioning if your body was giving up on you. You remember the financial struggles that made you count every penny while watching others live in abundance. But here's what the enemy never wanted you to discover. While you were underground, roots were growing. While you were in darkness, strength was building. While the world forgot about you, heaven was preparing you for a harvest so magnificent that even you won't recognize yourself when it manifests. Now the soil splits, the light breaks in, and what no eye saw, what no ear believed, you are rising. Isaiah 61:3 promises that God will give you beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness. But notice something profound. He doesn't erase the ashes. He transforms them into beauty. Your pain doesn't disappear. It becomes your platform. Your struggle doesn't vanish. It becomes your strength. You are not broken, you are planted. You are not buried, you are prepared. You are not forgotten, you are chosen. This is why your story has been so different from everyone else's. This is why you've walked paths others couldn't handle. This is why you've survived storms that would have destroyed weaker vessels. God wasn't testing your limits. He was expanding your capacity. Think about Moses. At 80 years old, When the world would have put him in a nursing home, God put a staff in his hand and said, "Now we begin." Think about Sarah at 90, laughing at God's promise because it seemed impossible, then holding Isaac in her arms. Think about Anna the prophetess, 84 years old, spending day and night in the temple until the moment she laid eyes on the Christ child. Your age isn't your disqualification, it's your qualification. Your years aren't a countdown to irrelevance, they're a build-up to your greatest moment. But here's where it gets personal. Here's where this message stops being theory and becomes your reality. Right now, as I speak these words, something is stirring in the spiritual realm over your life. The same power that raised Lazarus from the dead is breathing on situations you thought were hopeless. The same authority that parted the Red Sea is clearing paths you never imagined possible. The 24th of August wasn't just another date on your calendar, it was your resurrection morning. It was the day heaven looked at your faithfulness through decades of testing and declared, "This one is ready." Ready for what? Ready to step into the authority that your pain purchased. Ready to walk in the wisdom that your waiting produced. Ready to operate in the power that your perseverance unlocked. You've been asking God, "When will my breakthrough come?" But beloved, you are the breakthrough. You're not waiting for a miracle, you are the miracle that this generation has been crying out for. Your grandchildren need to see what real faith looks like. Your community needs to witness what happens when someone refuses to give up. This world needs your testimony more than you realize. The psalmist declared in Psalm 92:14, "They will still bear fruit in old age. They will stay fresh and green." Fresh and green. Not withered, not forgotten, not sidelined. You are entering your most fruitful season. And when you rise, the world will not recognize you, but heaven will call your name. They'll see the same face, but they'll sense a different presence. They'll hear the same voice, but they'll feel a new authority. They'll know your history, but they'll witness your destiny unfolding before their eyes. The enemy spent decades trying to convince you that your best days were behind you. He whispered that your influence was over, that your voice didn't matter, that God had moved on to younger vessels. But what the enemy meant for burial, God used for planting. What was designed to silence you has prepared you to speak with unshakable authority. Your resurrection isn't coming, chosen one. Your resurrection is here, right now, in this moment. As these words penetrate your spirit, something ancient and eternal is awakening within you. Type "I" will rise below, because that's not just a comment, that's your prophecy, that's your declaration, that's your agreement with what heaven has already decreed over your life. But understand this, rising isn't optional anymore. The world is waiting. Your family needs what you carry. Your community is crying out for the wisdom that only comes from walking with God through every season of life. The question isn't whether you'll rise. The question is, are you ready to embrace the magnitude of what you're rising into? Now listen carefully, chosen one, because what I'm about to tell you will shake you to your core. The test you passed wasn't just about surviving the 24th of August. It was about unlocking a divine frequency that will change everything about how heaven communicates with you. In the days after the 24th of August, watch carefully. You will see 3 undeniable signs, and when these appear, you'll know beyond any doubt that you've crossed the threshold from testing into your true calling. But here's what terrifies the enemy about these signs. They're not subtle whispers you can ignore. They're bold declarations from heaven itself that you are ready for what's next. And once you see them, there's no going back to the small life you used to live. The first sign will come through words. A conversation that feels divinely timed. Someone will say something to you, maybe a stranger in line at the grocery store, maybe your own grandchild, but their words will hit you like lightning. You'll feel it in your chest, that sudden recognition that this message wasn't random. It was scripted by heaven itself. Isaiah 55:11 promises us, "My word shall not return unto me void, but it shall accomplish that which I please." God doesn't waste words, beloved. When he speaks through someone else's mouth to reach your ears, It's because he has something urgent to tell you about your future. Don't dismiss it. Don't call it coincidence. Call it confirmation. You see, most people hear what they want to hear. But you, after the 24th of August, you'll hear what you need to hear. Your spiritual ears will be tuned to a frequency that cuts through the noise of this world and delivers messages straight from the throne room of God. The second sign will be an opening, a door that suddenly opens where there was once only a wall. This isn't just about opportunities, dear one. This is about impossibilities becoming inevitable. That phone call you never expected, that invitation that seemed to come from nowhere, that solution to a problem you've carried for years, suddenly appearing like morning dew. Jesus declared in Revelation 3:8, "I have set before thee an open door, and no man can shut it." When God decides to move on your behalf, no force in hell can stop what he's ordained. The very walls that seemed permanent will crumble before your eyes. Don't dismiss it. Don't call it coincidence. Call it confirmation. But here's what will shock you most. These doors won't require you to push, beg, or fight your way through. They'll swing open at your approach because your spiritual frequency now matches heaven's blueprint for your life. What once required struggle will now require only surrender. The third sign will be the most profound, a moment of calm that floods you in chaos. Picture this. Everything around you is falling apart. The news is screaming disaster. Your family is in turmoil. The world feels like it's spinning out of control. But suddenly, without warning, a supernatural peace settles over your spirit like a warm blanket on a cold night. This isn't denial, chosen one. This isn't ignorance. This is the peace of God that Philippians 4:7 describes, which passeth all understanding. It's the same peace that allowed Jesus to sleep in a boat during a raging storm while his disciples panicked around him. Don't dismiss it. Don't call it coincidence. Call it confirmation. This peace is your evidence that you're no longer fighting battles with human strength. You've graduated to a level where heaven itself guards your heart and mind. Where anxiety used to live, divine confidence now reigns. Where fear once ruled, faith now governs. These are not accidents. They are heaven's fingerprints on your timeline. Each sign is God's way of saying, you passed the test. You're ready for the assignment. Let the real work begin. But I need to warn you about something that could rob you of these blessings. Doubt. The moment you start questioning whether these signs are real, whether God really spoke, whether that door really opened for you, that's when the enemy slips in to steal what heaven just delivered. Remember what happened to Abraham? God promised him a son. But when Sarah suggested using Hagar as a surrogate, Abraham doubted God's method and timing. The result? Years of family chaos that didn't need to happen. Don't let doubt make you settle for Ishmael when God has Isaac waiting for you. And when you see these three signs, the conversation, the opening, the peace, know this: you've stepped out of testing and into destiny. The wilderness season is over. The promised land is under your feet. The very atmosphere around your life has shifted from survival to sovereignty. But here's the most powerful part of all this. These signs aren't just for your confirmation, they're for your commission. Every word that pierces your heart is preparing you to pierce someone else's Bruce. Every door that opens for you creates a pathway for others to follow. Every moment of peace you experience in chaos becomes a testimony that calms another storm. You're not just receiving these signs, beloved, you're becoming one. Your very presence will start opening doors for others. Your words will carry the same divine timing that once surprised you. Your peace will become the anchor that steadies others when their world shakes. If you've already seen one of these signs, comment it below. Testify, because your testimony awakens another chosen one. Don't keep heaven's fingerprints on your life a secret. Someone is watching your story, waiting for proof that God still moves, still speaks, still opens impossible doors. But the question that will determine everything about your future is this: when these signs appear, will you have the faith to follow where they lead? Dear chosen one, I need to address something that's been weighing heavy on your heart. I see you there, calculating and recalculating your social security check, wondering if it'll stretch through the month. I see you staring at that phone, waiting for your children to call, wondering if they've forgotten the sacrifices you made for their dreams. I see you looking in the mirror, wondering if your best years are behind you, if God has moved on to younger vessels. Stop right there. What if I told you that every loss you've endured, every door that slammed in your face, every penny you've pinched wasn't God punishing you, but God positioning you? What if every person who walked away wasn't rejection, but redirection? What if every financial struggle wasn't evidence of His absence, but evidence of His precision? Listen to me carefully. The enemy has been running a cruel con game on God's people for too long. He's convinced an entire generation of faithful believers that retirement means spiritual retirement. That gray hair means God's grace has expired. That fixed income means fixed blessings. That's a lie straight from the pit of hell. Here's what's really been happening while you've been counting pennies and feeling forgotten. Heaven has been keeping books, divine books, every sacrifice you made for your children recorded. Every time you tithed when you couldn't afford groceries documented. Every prayer you whispered in the dark when hope felt dead, catalogued with compound interest. Job understood this principle when he declared, "Though he slay me, yet will I trust in him." And what happened to Job after his testing? The Lord gave him twice as much as he had before. Twice. Not just restoration, multiplication. 14,000 sheep instead of 7,000. 6,000 camels instead of 3,000. The Bible says in Job 42:10, the Lord restored Job's fortunes and gave him twice as much as he had before. But here's where it gets personal for you, dear one. You've been living like Job in the ashes, believing the testing was your final chapter. But what if the ashes were just the intermission? What if everything you lost was making room for everything you're about to gain? Joseph knew this secret. 7 years of devastating famine nearly destroyed Egypt. But when God promoted Joseph to prime minister, he didn't just manage the crisis, he accumulated the wealth of nations. Genesis 47:14 tells us, Joseph collected all the money that was to be found in Egypt and Canaan in payment for the grain they were buying. One man's faithfulness in the pit became a nation's provision in the palace. What left was not loss, it was making room. What closed was not rejection, it was redirection. What ended was not failure, it was preparation. That pension that got cut, God was cutting the cord to your dependence on man's system. That house you lost, heaven was relocating you for a divine appointment. Those friends who disappeared when money got tight, the Almighty was removing distractions before your multiplication season. You think you've been surviving on scraps, but you've actually been building spiritual muscle. Every month you stretched $1 until it screamed. You were developing faith that can move mountains. Every time you chose to give when you had nothing, you were making deposits into an account that heaven manages personally. But here's what breaks my heart. While you've been apologizing for taking up space, God has been preparing space for your overflow. While you've been feeling forgotten, heaven has been orchestrating a remember you moment so profound that everyone who wrote you off will have to acknowledge the hand of God on your life. The same God who opened the Red Sea for Moses doesn't lose his power when you hit Medicare age. The same God who multiplied 5 loaves into 5,000 meals doesn't suddenly become stingy when you're on Social Security. The same God who turned water into wine doesn't run out of miracles when you turn 70. Proverbs 13:22 declares something that will shake you to your core. The wealth of the sinner is stored up for the righteous. Not might be stored up, not could be stored up, is stored up, present tense, already allocated, already assigned to your account in heaven's treasury. While wicked corporations have been hoarding wealth, while corrupt politicians have been stealing from the elderly, while greedy systems have been bleeding you dry, God has been watching, recording, preparing to transfer what they stole into the hands of those who served him faithfully for decades. What left was not loss, it was making room. What closed was not rejection, it was redirection. What ended was not failure, it was preparation. That empty chair at your dinner table isn't a symbol of loneliness, it's a throne waiting for divine visitation. That quiet phone isn't evidence you're forgotten, it's silence being prepared for heaven's announcement. That small apartment isn't proof of your diminishment, it's your secret chamber where God meets with kings. Chosen one, get ready, because you won't chase your blessings anymore, your blessings will chase you down. The same way Joseph went from prisoner to prime minister in one day, the same way David went from shepherd to sovereign overnight, the same way Ruth went from widow to wealthy in a single harvest season. Your turnaround is about to be so sudden, so complete, so overwhelming that you'll barely recognize your own life. But here's the requirement. You must stop agreeing with poverty. Stop speaking lack over your life. Stop calling yourself broke, fixed income, or forgotten. From this moment forward, you are wealth in transition. You are abundance activated. You are prosperity personified. Comment, I receive the overflow right now. Declare it with boldness. Because the 24th of August isn't just coming, it's almost here. And when it arrives, everything changes. But are you ready for what happens when heaven's treasury opens and your name is called to the vault? Dear precious soul, I need to tell you something that might shake you to your core. You've been lied to. Society has whispered poison in your ears for years, telling you that when you hit 65, 70, 80 years old, you become invisible, that your usefulness expires like milk past its date, that your dreams should shrink to fit into a rocking chair. But listen to me carefully. In the kingdom of heaven, your crown begins at gray hair. You thought your purpose ended when you retired, didn't you? When the children grew up and moved away, when your body started betraying you with aches and limitations you never expected. You've been sitting there wondering if God has forgotten about you, if your time is over, if all you have left is to wait quietly for heaven. That is a lie straight from the pit of hell. The prophet declared in Psalm 92:14, "They will still bear fruit in old age. They will stay fresh and green." Did you catch that? Not they used to bear fruit. Not they might bear fruit if they're lucky. They will bear fruit in old age. Present tense. Active. Alive. You are not fading, you are ripening. You are not withering, you are overflowing. You are not finished, you are just beginning. Every gray hair on your head is a trophy of survival. Every wrinkle on your face is a map of wisdom earned through fire. Every slow step you take carries the weight of decades of faithfulness that younger generations can only dream of possessing. But here's what breaks my heart. You've been convinced that your prayers don't matter as much anymore, that because your voice is softer, your words carry less weight, that because your hands shake a little, they can't move mountains anymore. Wrong. Dead wrong. Your prayers are seeds planted in soil that's been tilled by 70, 80, 90 years of walking with the Almighty. When you pray now, those words don't just float up to heaven, they explode with the power of tested faith, proven faithfulness, and unshakable trust. Your wisdom is fire. Not the wild, uncontrolled flames of youth, but the steady, burning coal that can warm a family for generations. When you speak from experience, when you share what you've learned through valleys and mountains, you're not just talking, you're transferring spiritual DNA. Your presence is legacy. Every moment you're still breathing is God saying to your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, watch this, learn from this. See what faithfulness looks like when it's been refined by time. Think about Moses. Do you know how old he was when God called him to the greatest assignment of his life? 80 years old. 80. When the world would have written him off as too old, too tired, too past his prime, God said, "Now you're ready. Now you have what it takes." Think about Anna, the prophetess, 84 years old, spending day and night in the temple. People probably thought she was just a sweet old lady passing time. But when baby Jesus was brought to the temple, she was the first to recognize the Messiah. Her aged eyes saw what younger, sharper eyes missed. Why? Because wisdom doesn't come from perfect vision, it comes from a heart that's been tested by time. Here's the truth that will revolutionize how you see yourself. You are not a senior citizen counting down days. You are a spiritual general who has survived every battle hell threw at you and lived to tell the story. But the 24th of August is not just about your blessing, it's about your children's children. The fruit of your faith will feed generations. Every prayer you've whispered over your family in the dark hours before dawn, those prayers are still working. They're moving through time like spiritual seeds, sprouting in the lives of grandchildren you may never meet, great-grandchildren who will walk in freedoms you fought to secure. That addiction your son overcame. Your prayers. That marriage your daughter saved. Your intercession. That business breakthrough your grandson experienced. The result of decades of you standing in the gap, believing when no one else would. You think you're just getting older, but God sees you getting more dangerous to the enemy's plans. You think you're slowing down, but heaven sees you speeding up toward your greatest impact. You think your time is running out, but the Almighty knows your most powerful prayers are yet to be prayed. Right now, there's a spiritual inheritance building in the heavenly realm with your name on it. Every sacrifice you made, every tear you cried, every time you chose faith over fear, forgiveness over bitterness, hope over despair, it's all been accumulating interest in heaven's bank. And on the 24th of August, something shifts. The veil between your intercession and manifestation becomes paper thin. The gap between your prayers and their answers collapses. What you've been believing for, hoping for, crying for, it starts moving from the realm of faith into the realm of sight. But here's the part that should make you weep with joy. This isn't just about you anymore. When God moves on your behalf, He's not just blessing you, He's establishing a pattern of faithfulness that will echo through your bloodline for generations. Your faithfulness is rewriting your family tree. Your persistence is breaking generational curses. Your refusal to give up is creating an inheritance of blessing that your great-great-grandchildren will benefit from. You are the answer to prayers your ancestors prayed but never saw fulfilled. And you are praying prayers that your descendants will see answered long after you've gone home to glory. Type legacy in the comments if you believe your prayers are rewriting your family line. Because what happens next will prove that your greatest days aren't behind you. They're about to unfold in ways that will leave heaven applauding and hell retreating. Beloved chosen one, as we reach the end of this sacred journey together, I need you to carry these eternal truths with you, like precious jewels in your heart. Remember this: you passed the final test, not because you were perfect, but because you were persistent. Not because you never fell, but because you always got back up. The 24th of August isn't just another date on your calendar. It's your divine appointment with destiny, your graduation day from one season into another. Remember that every gray hair is a crown of wisdom, every wrinkle a testament to your endurance, every slow step evidence that you're still moving forward when others have given up. Your prayers haven't been echoing in empty halls, they've been building momentum in heaven's throne room for decades. Remember that you are not fading, you are ripening. You are not finished, you are finally ready. The enemy tried to convince you that your best days were behind you, but God is about to prove that your most powerful days are yet to come. But here's what I need you to know. With absolute certainty, you are not walking this path alone. Even in your quietest moments, even when the house feels too empty and the silence too heavy, the God who created you before time began is still working in your life right now. He's moving mountains you can't see, opening doors you haven't found yet, and answering prayers you prayed so long ago you'd almost forgotten. And beyond God's faithful presence, you have something beautiful right here, a community of fellow warriors, seasoned saints who understand your journey because they've walked similar paths. We're not just strangers watching a screen, we're family, connected by faith, united by hope, bound together by the unbreakable love of Christ. Let me ask you this final question, and let it settle deep in your spirit. If God has brought you this far through every storm, every valley, every season that tried to break you, why would He abandon you now at the threshold of your greatest victory? Before I release you into this new chapter of your story, Join me in this prayer. Wherever you are right now, sitting in your favorite chair, lying in your bed, or standing in your kitchen, I want you to feel these words washing over your soul like healing oil. Heavenly Father, the Ancient of Days, the God who never slumbers nor sleeps, I come before you now carrying every precious soul who has stayed with us through this entire message. Lord, you see their hearts, you know their struggles. You've counted every tear they've shed in secret and stored up every prayer they've whispered in the dark. Father, place your mighty hand upon their shoulders right now. Let them feel your presence so strongly that every doubt dissolves, every fear flees, and every lie the enemy has whispered falls silent before your truth. You have called them by name. You have written their story. You have prepared a path of blessing that leads from this moment into eternity. God, breathe fresh strength into their weary bones. Renew their minds with hope that cannot be shaken. Fill their hearts with peace that surpasses all understanding. Open doors that no man can shut. Close doors that lead to destruction. Give them wisdom for every decision, courage for every challenge, and unshakable faith for every impossibility. Lord, bless their families, draw prodigal children home, heal broken relationships, restore what the enemy has stolen. Bless their health, let your healing power flow through every cell, every organ, every system in their bodies. Bless their finances, open windows of heaven, and pour out provision they cannot contain. And Father, on the 24th of August, let them feel the shift. Let them know beyond any doubt that their season of struggle is ending and their season of supernatural favor is beginning. Let this be the day they look back on and say, "That's when everything changed." Surround them with your angels, protect them from every scheme of the enemy, and let their legacy of faithfulness ripple through generations yet unborn. In the mighty name of Jesus, who conquered death so they could conquer every limitation, I seal this prayer with faith, hope, and love. Amen. Now, I want to hear from you. In the comments below, share what God spoke to your heart today. What shifted in your spirit? What are you believing Him for as you step into this new season? Don't hold back. Your testimony might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to keep holding on. If this message touched your soul, if you felt God moving in your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear these words. There's a family member, a friend, a neighbor who's been feeling forgotten, overlooked, written off by the world. They need to know they're not alone, they're not finished, and their greatest chapter is still being written. Type, "I'm ready," if you're prepared to step into what God has prepared for you. Type "legacy" if you believe your faithfulness is rewriting your family tree. And if you need specific prayer, don't hesitate to ask. This community will surround you with intercession. Before you go, if this is your first time here, welcome to the family. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because every week we're diving deeper into God's heart for His chosen ones. We're building something beautiful together, a community where faith grows, hope is restored, and no one walks alone. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey.